Welcome into the Scene Project Sports Network. I am your host, Bubba Startz, and with me today, former Ohio State University and NFL receiver, Roy Hall Jr. Roy, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Bubba. I'm excited, man. This is awesome.
Well, you got a lot of reason to be excited. Got a new book out there, and, Fight Through It is going to change a lot of lives. So you have a lot to be grateful for and a lot to be excited about right now. Before we get into all that, though, I think where I'd like to start is just getting a little bit of your backstory. I know you spent a few years in the league, and I'm sure our listeners will be, grateful to hear a little bit about that experience. But we'll get a little backstory, and then we'll pick it up from there.
No, that's awesome. That's awesome, man. So a lot of it is obviously the Ohio State University, and we'll get into the football side of it. But growing up had some challenges, like many of your listeners and viewers may have had something in your childhood that maybe changed your life forever. For me, my dad had some challenges with substance abuse, and him and my mom divorced early on. But my mom and her next relationship saw a lot of domestic violence, and so watching my mom go through those challenges and the consequences that revolve around those challenges, being on the poverty line or below. Dad pawned off a lot of the electronics to kind of fuel his habits. So we didn't start out the second phase of life as kids in the family with a lot of money or anything. Mom working 2 jobs, no car, and then having to ask family members and things for money and try and figure out how to make a way for ends to meet. And so mom had some challenges, and she sacrificed and worked and poured into us and was huge on education. And so I set out at a very early age with a dream at 8 years old to figure out a way to be able to take care of my mother, because I wasn't able to do the things that I wanted to do or stand up for her, protect her, be a barrier and fight for her when I was a young kid, when certain men in her life was taking advantage of that. And so my response was to double down on education, be a 4.0 student, and then leverage my athletic ability to take me to where my imagination had drawn up. And so that landed me in a space by the time I was a sophomore in high school as one of the top wide receivers in the country, with over 50 scholarship offers from the likes of Princeton, Yale, and Harvard, all the way to Texas, Alabama, and the Ohio State University. And so once I committed to Ohio State my senior year, again, now you have a 4 to 5 year window to try and develop and do whatever you can, again, to make it to that next level. And not so much for the fame, not for the fortune, Bubba, not for more likes or followers as they would have these days, but to really position myself financially and to create a platform to be able to do what I couldn't do as a little kid, which is fully cover and take care of my mom and my family. And so by the grace of God, I was able to do that. And I'm thankful for those moments where we had to fight through. And here we are.
Yeah, that's tough. My heart goes out to you. And unfortunately, your story is not unique to you, right? A lot of people that live through that, whether it's and I've dealt with my own substance abuse problems and grateful that I was able to kind of overcome those before they became a problem for my own children in that way. But having a mom that no doubt inspired you not only to be better for her, but always kind of inspiring you in the moment to be better for you. And I think that's something that we can all take away. Shout out to your mom in particular and all the moms out there for everything that they do for us. I know I wouldn't be here without mine as well.
It puts a different meaning on those holidays that people call Hallmark holidays, like Mother's Day. I mean, whether you believe whether it should be a real holiday or not, what better honorable moment than to lift up someone like a mom who has carried you through. And here's the deal. Not everyone has those same stories. Sometimes the mom is the one that maybe caused some harm. However, if nothing else, that individual did as best as they could by birthing you. And so when you have a mom who's been able to overcome adversity, fight through adversity, fight through the challenges, and not give up on their kids, because a lot of times they have to get themselves right before they can get you right. And so just learning what work ethic is, learning what care and compassion is, learning how to have real mental toughness, to be able to look your kids in the face and say, hey, this year you're not going to have a birthday or a Christmas, but it doesn't mean that you're not going to go without love. And we're going to make sure that you have food to eat and a meal to have on the table. Those things matter, man. Working 2 jobs, specifically one where you obviously don't want to do, to make sure that your kids have what's necessary so that they don't get bullied or teased in school. Like, that's real strength. And that's real focus and real discipline to be able to put your kids first, because it's not something that everybody does. So, I always love Mother's Day for that reason, to be able to honor my mom, but I do it every day by making sure I stay in contact with her daily. We talk daily, and we see each other weekly, and it's the least I can do for the person that's probably one of the most important people in my life.
I love that you guys are still close, and I'm sure she was so proud to see you not just play at the Ohio State University, but to go on and continue your career in football with the National Football League. Now, I know your career was cut short due to injuries. Do you feel like the mental fortitude that you developed through your early years, no doubt in high school, maintaining a 4.0 and building an athletic career on top of that, do you feel like that helped you to kind of overcome those challenges, not just in the league, but then post leaving the league and football for good?
No, sure. And that's a great way to frame it, Bubba, because what you see as a young person really develops who you become. And sometimes people go to the right and to the left, and sometimes those negative experiences can actually put you in a position where you become that, or you become better because of that. And for me, the sacrifice and the pain, watching my mom go through, there's a moment, and I talk about it in the book, really in the first chapter, because the book itself, it's called Fight Through It, which I believe that anyone hearing this message or seeing these clips, they know what it means to fight through it. It is not a get through it. It is not a work through it. Like in life, every day is a battle. You got to fight through it. But the part that is most important to me is the subtitle, which is the battles, the breakthroughs, and the beauty of becoming resilient enough to never give up. And so the first part of the book, the first third, is about the battles. And I come out the gate talking about a specific moment where this gentleman that was dating my mom hit my mom in the face. It broke her nose, and I was the person that had to come face to face with him with a screwdriver in his hand as he approached me and my mom at 13 years old. And so I start there. And so when you witness so much blood coming out of your mom's face, where it looks like somebody shook up a red Faygo pop and it exploded, and you see it happen in front of you in real time, and you're a 13-year-old feeling like you're an 18-year-old and wanting to go toe-to-toe with a grown man who's 5'11", 225 pounds and stocky, and you're really in that moment, you're saying, I will put my life on the line to keep you away from this woman. Like, it makes it easy to overcome a knee surgery or a shoulder injury, like you get a different level of resilience because you know what's at stake, you know what's on the line. Getting to the NFL, yes, it was my dream, but it was my dream because I wanted to make sure that I didn't disregard everything that happened before I got to that level. And I got to that level to be able to take care of my mother. So now all of a sudden, when there's something in front of me that's saying, hey, man, this might be it. Hey, tap out. This is too hard. How are you going to overcome this? Here you are again, finding yourself getting released from an NFL team, getting cut from a team. What are you going to do next? Like, I've already had the blueprint, and I've had it since 8. I saw it again at 13, and now all of a sudden I know what I'm fighting for. I have a who and a why, and it just keeps you going.
Yeah, that's a tragic story, and what a hook in that first chapter to really captivate a reader. I hope everyone gets the book, fightthroughit.com. It's something that we wish people didn't have to go through ever. And I absolutely hate that you had to, but it also shaped the man that you are now. And now you're being able to turn that story into a positive. And that situation that not just your mom, but that you were put into, you could have both landed in the hospital or worse that night. And, you know, by the grace of God, you didn't. And just, it's unfathomable. Now, I didn't grow up with domestic violence necessarily being a problem in my household. I couldn't imagine ever being in that position myself. but I've been in some positions throughout my life that that are my story that I revert to. And no doubt in your life that you revert to that memory so often when things feel like they are too much, to think back, well, if I could get over that, then I can really get over and accomplish anything.
And that's exactly right. Yeah, I couldn't have said it any better. And that's you talking from a place of overcoming adversity and challenges and difficulties and your own mess, so to speak. But and again, this is where your test becomes a testimony, your mess into a message. In the book, I put, life, when you keep fighting through it, your miss becomes a mission, which becomes an act of service, which is something that I do as well, giving back to the community through my Driven Foundation, understanding that you need help. But those moments of where you have a wreck, it becomes recognition. I like the two words and kind of pulling them together. But my favorite is Bubba, and you can hold on to this one, where you think it's the end, God will give you endurance to go through it. And so now all of a sudden where you're like, this is the moment where I can either make a decision to quit and it's all over, or some way, somehow I now have the endurance and I can stretch that thing out if I just go one more day. And I start stacking days and positive decisions and changing my habits and mindset. And then you all of a sudden get 10 years removed and you're sober for 10 years or 5 years or 6 months. You start stacking days. And now the effort that you put in to changing your circumstance is no longer traumatic. It's like a triumph now where you're saying, hey, this was awful, but without this, I wouldn't be the human being I am today. And so those are those moments for me that are necessary. I wouldn't wish them on any kid, on any person. However, if you've gone through, or if you're going through anything now, whether it's cancer treatments, challenges in relationships, it's really shaping and molding and engineering and really like sharpening you to be the person that you need to be for the next 5 to 10 years of your life.
Now, making it into the NFL is a challenge all of its own, and extremely difficult, right? It's a very small percentage of the human population that have ever played in the league, but there's also a very large percentage of the people that make it, like yourself, who are out of the league in a lot shorter time period than they would want to. Mostly, I would say, similar to your story, by injury. Talk to me about some of those challenges of making it to that apex, right? That pinnacle of what you thought your life could be, and being able to provide for your mom finally, and then having to go through the challenge of by really, I mean, no fault of your own, injuries happen, but having that kind of taken away and overcoming that.
Yeah, it's probably the hardest years of my life. And so the whole goal, again, if you're motivated to take care of your family or a person, and a lot of people I believe are motivated by that, but most professions outside of being a professional athlete, you get an opportunity to keep going. There's no one that's going to come in and say, hey, you can't do this anymore because you pulled your hamstring, or you can't do this anymore because your ankles won't hold up, or you popped your Achilles. You can do your profession for 30, 40, 50 years and do it at a really high level. In the NFL or NBA or NHL, whatever the professional sports league you want to pick, you are really not given the opportunity to say so on when you're going to retire or leave the game. Very few get to really make the decision, I'm going to leave on my own terms. As a matter of fact, it's kind of a running joke. Not only does NFL stand for not for long, but usually your last play that you play, you would have bet your house on that you would have came back and played another play, another snap, and you just never know when that's going to be. And so transitioning out of that, specifically at a relatively young age, I'm talking 26, 27 years old, where most people are just now getting going on what they want to do with their lives. You've come out of the career that you wanted to do for your whole life, and you've only been able to do it for 3 or 4 years. Now, right now, they say it's like 2.67 years is the lifespan of an NFL player, which essentially means you get to play 2 seasons and maybe you'll make it to your third. And that's on average. And so that means the guys that are playing for 20 plus years, like Tom Brady, for every Tom Brady, there's probably 100 or 150 guys that only get to play 1 season in general. And so when you transition out of that, the biggest thing is, number one, identity. who am I without football? Who am I without this thing? And really, it's not just football, the sport is connected to the locker room and the connections that you make and being a part of something that's massively larger than just yourself, and not being able to go back even if you wanted to, not even having that control, not having any say so. But then also, how many people are you letting down by not being able to accomplish what you set out to accomplish at reaching that apex that you mentioned? How does that like dictate what you do in your interaction with those people? If you're wanting to take care of certain people, if you wanting to set up a certain lifestyle, even if you were starting a business or giving back to your own organization, what do you do now when the income goes from being in that half of the 1% of people in America now down to how am I and what am I going to do with my life moving forward? The biggest gripe that I have with outside opinions on that is, hey, just fall back on your degree. And yes, that's easier said than done. But even if you fall back on your degree, you go from now the NFL minimum making $850,000 to, hey, you could start off right now at 80 grand. And you're talking about 10% of the lifestyle and the way that you were going about your life. And what does that 80,000 look like as opposed to 800 and what you can do with it? And furthermore, Bubba, when you give everything to something from when you're 10 years old to when you're 27, and that's what you do, it all of a sudden forms this thing in you that when it's ripped away from you, you really have to become and live a new life. Like you die a physical and mental and emotional death towards that occupation. And now you have to reset like it never began. And you got to watch other people who have been probably backing you up or people that you played with sign massive contracts. And all of a sudden it's just like, hey, transition and fall back on your education. It's just not that simple. There's a level of depression. There's a level of anxiety. There's a level of shame and guilt where people treated you like a superhero. And now they literally treat you like Clark Kent when he loses his powers. And people remember, hey, man, that was really cool when you caught this touchdown pass. Or that was awesome. Hey, man, sorry it didn't work out in the NFL. And now you got to reset. So it's a difficult time, man, for everyone involved to adjust when you lose that platform.
The identity part of that is so massive. And our listeners know I'm the director of marketing and PR for Operation Combating Veteran Suicide. And a big part that we talk about, very similar to the athlete journey, is our military veterans. And they've dedicated in sometimes their entire adult life to something, and whether they're medically discharged or they finally retire, that transition into getting out and no longer having that forward-facing mission. You don't have something that's in front of you every day. Now, whether that is I'm going to perform for my team or I'm going to serve my country, the loss of identity is exactly the same. The depression, the anxiety, the loss of self inside of that, because so much of what you are doing is wrapped up inside of this thing that you do and not necessarily who you are as a man or a woman out there in the world. And that can be an extremely difficult time for anyone, not to mention the financial side of it at all, right? Our military aren't making the kind of money that professional athletes are making. Sure. So maybe there's a little bit of that, but they also don't have, and like you alluded to, fall back in your degree. Yeah, but a degree that you haven't used for the entire time you've had it means absolutely nothing when you get out there and in the workforce. And you hope that someone at the place you're applying to maybe remembers your name from that athletic side and gives you a chance because of your status and not because of, how good you are at the job that you've never done.
Well, the biggest thing, even with the identity piece, is you don't even know who you are without it. And so you have to figure out what you do with you. A forward-facing mission, you will give up what it is that you want or what's best for you for the sake of the mission or for the sake of the team. And that's all you know. So when you get out of it, you're like, I need to connect to something immediately that allows me to contribute to a team environment and keeps me on routine. And so whether it be a veteran, and obviously the top three people and occupations, in my personal opinion, number one is anybody in the armed forces who's serving for our freedoms in this country. That's number one. Number two would probably be first responders in any capacity, firemen, EMTs, police officers. And then number three would be educators, teachers, and everybody in that space. Those are the top three. Now, just imagine being a teacher and you walking in to go teach your students and then like, all right, you're done. You've put in 2 years. You need to be finished. And you're like, what are you talking? Like, this is what I want to do. This is on my heart. This is what I've been called to do. And no, you're out of here. Like, you can't apply. You can't go back. You can't do anything. Even individuals, Bubba, that retire. How many people do you know retire? I mean, you're talking 60 plus. They'll retire and go back to the same thing or just go work somewhere just because they want to be a part of something. When you do something for so long, think about doctors and surgeons and people, high-level sales, CEOs, when they have to leave, even when they have a large bankroll or they've been tenured or have a massive retirement, they are trying to figure out, what am I supposed to do now without this? And they got to do it for a long period of time. Now imagine being a football player and you're like, hey, this is what I want to do. If I can get in 10 years, get it to my second contract, I could set my legacy forever. I can change my family line forever. And then it's like, because of a hamstring injury, plus another knee, plus another surgery, plus these young dudes coming in, plus this problem, you can no longer do it. Start over, go fall back on your degree. When you got your degree in college, you didn't even know what it was for. You just did what you thought was best at the time. You're like, all right, what can make a lot of money?
Be the easiest thing for me to coast through, so I can play ball and focus on athletics during that time.
Come on, man. It's not easy, brother. It's not easy at all. You know, for those who want to be vets or doctors or attorneys, there's a certain line that, you know, this is what I set up to do. But for the majority of us, you're like, hey, I'm a communications major. What does that mean? I don't know. 15 years from now, podcasting is going to be booming. And now I find myself with a mic. That's that degree kicking in right there. I knew it. And so it's difficult, man, to do those things, to transition out. Even with moms, I've seen it with parents. Unfortunately, obviously, people lose children and children pass away. And just being a mom or being a dad is like, man, I can't even do that anymore. Who am I without that position? And so it was hard, man. It was very difficult to fight through that. Very difficult.
And what was it that you turned to? Because obviously, you know, given your dad's proclivities for substance abuse and those things, you worry about a genetic predisposition to that. I dealt with those kind of things. I come from a long family of alcoholics. Now, none of them necessarily ruined their lives with it, but you know, my grandfather drank until the point where they're like, you can't drink anymore, and he was dead less than 6 months later. Mm-hmm. Right. So they was that a worry for you of having that? And especially because you were dealing with injuries, we know these doctors are prescribing, you know, heavy narcotics sometimes into these injuries. Was that something that you had to deal with, or because of your, you know, kind of seeing that in your early years, sure, that you were able to kind of overcome that without, you know, the substance abuse issues?
Yeah, that certainly was not an issue. I think the thing for me that I always wanted to do on any account was stay away from any type of drugs or alcohol that could put me in position to make some of those bad choices that either my pops made or, you know, men that were around at the time were making. So it was more the opposite for me. Like, I'm not even going to put something in my body that could even have my mom in a position where it's like a Lynn bias moment where something went wrong. It was a bad batch or something, or I make a poor decision to get behind the wheel of a car with something in my system and I'm gone. And so I never wanted to put her through that. So that was never an issue. I think for me, it's almost total recall on why I'm doing what I'm doing and what am I supposed to be relying on or leaning on, and why does God have me in the position that he has me in. When you talk about playing in the NFL, I know theoretically you just say, hey man, that's great, you made it. But when you start to break down the numbers, Bubba, of 8+ billion people being on earth, and there only being 160 NFL wide receivers on active rosters throughout the season. So you're talking 160 people of the 8.5 billion on earth. And people say, hey, well, what if women aren't playing football? Listen, if we find a woman that could run a 4.1 and 6'4" and can run some routes, I'm telling you, the way the flag football and everything's running, and she could jump up like LeBron and snatch something off of DB's head, she'll be in the league. So don't give me that. But my point is, we got chosen, those who were blessed to make it and fortunate to make it. I'm 1 out of 160 out of 8 billion people. And so you add that and tack that on to how I was raised and the environment that I was raised, you're talking about a goal that's almost impossible to do. And if you're looking at a little kid in that situation, he says, I want to go to the NFL, Mr. Hall. And it's like, hey, man, like it's almost impossible. Everything has to go right. And a bunch of things got to go wrong to develop you into the person you need to be able to withstand that position. So for me, it was total recall. Number one, remembering how I was raised. So, and what we went through. So if I know that I went through moments where mom had to figure out what we were going to eat, or have moments where we didn't have the meal that we wanted to, and being on free lunches in school and getting bullied and picked on, and not having a father around or a father figure, not playing organized sports until I was in the 7th grade, which means I didn't have a coach to get me on the right path, not even having someone who believed in me more than I believed in myself, not even being exposed to that. I was able to offer that through my Driven Foundation. And so immediately, even my last year in the NFL, when we started the organization, understanding that we needed to be about giving families basic needs, food to families, and providing mentorship and leadership to young men and kids in school was huge for me. And so when I got done playing, immediately my focus started being on, how can I help grow this organization, and how can I be in schools and be that coach, be that mentor for young people, both boys and girls, to help them reach their goals and their dreams. So that was the primary focus. When I stopped thinking about myself, life is not about you, and started thinking about the things that I went through that I could help other people get through and work through and fight through, that was the focus. So their problems, their challenges, their hurt, their pain was so much greater than mine, but their pain gave me purpose in being able to not just say, hey, I'm gonna help you work through this or fight through this. I'm someone who had to fight through it myself, so I know where you came from. So that was the number one primary focus. Number two was recognizing that I was in position, Bubba, to be able to change my family history. If you do ancestry.com, my grandfather's grandfather was a slave. That's how close it is. My grandfather's grandfather was a slave. So you fast forward 2 generations or 1 generation, and my grandfather, who served in the Air Force, came home, married his wife, was told by the mortgage teams and brokerage companies and these different places, the banks, that number one, they had to live in a certain area, not the area that they could afford via his GI Bill, not the area that he wanted to live in or my grandmother wanted to live in. Hey, this block right here that's redlined here is the only place that you can stay. Oh, and we'll double down. And if you really want to get this bank loan, your wife can't have any more kids. She already had 3. So that's how my family started. The same house that they purchased is the same house that I grew up in for the first 6 years of my life. And so to go from that all the way to just 3 or 4 months ago, being invited to the State House here in Columbus, Ohio, to open up in prayer and do the invocation for Governor DeWine's State of the State address, to go from not being able to pick a house to in the State House in front of all the power and decision makers here in the state of Ohio, based on fighting through adversity and knowing what we stand for, was number 2. Always knowing where I came from and who I represent and who came before me, right? We got these big, massive things that we want to build, but never forgetting who laid the first brick was number 2. And then number 3 was my faith, Bubba. Real simple. Dove into ministry head on, took ministry training and went through ministry school and Bible college for 2 years straight, 48 out of the 52 weeks, putting in 10 or so hours a week. And then parlaying that into being the team chaplain for the Ohio State football team for the last 12 years. One of them anyway, has carried me through. So remembering my family, understanding the freedom, so to speak, that my grandfather fought for, and then also my faith were the 3 things that carried me through the darkest period of my life.
Yeah, and got the scroll going on here now. You can check out more about the Driven Foundation, staydriven.org. I wanted to make sure that we get that plugged in there as well. Just incredible story, Roy, from everything, from your ancestral beginnings, right? How your, ancestors came to this country through your grandfather's service. Obviously, we're very grateful for him and your ability to turn what would absolutely ruin some guys, and it does, right? I'm sure you know a lot of guys that had shortened careers in the league that are around you that did go the other direction and did, fall into deep depression or something. And I'm so grateful that you already had the mission. And even though you had to fight through to maybe, remember that your mission was greater than just being a football player, and to really digging into that and where it's taking you now, obviously still tied very closely to the Ohio State University. To the point where Coach Day did the forward to your book. So I would love for you to speak a little bit about, the book and where people can find it and all of that before I let you get out of here today.
No, that's awesome. And the biggest thing is just storytelling. And in the book, I try and write it in such a way where I bring you into these specific moments of my life that were pivotal and lessons that I learned from it. This is a leadership book. It's a motivational book. It's an inspirational book. It's professional and personal development. But most importantly, it's a book to remind you of who you really are and the power that you possess to really overcome almost anything. And that's why the title is what it is, to be able to fight through and know that when you wake up every morning and you put those 2 feet on the ground, that number one, every day is a gift. And you have to have gratitude, because when you say the cliche things or the idioms of tomorrow is not promised and today is a treasure or time is a treasure, those things are real. And so when you approach each day with a sense of urgency and a sense of purpose, knowing that you are here for a reason. When 175,000 people pass away every day, 2 average on every second, you're talking 50, 60, 70 million people a year. And we get chosen, Bubba, to be here today. Why us? It's like, why you? Why did you get chosen to be here? It's not to complain. It's not to even just keep going through pain. It's really to be resilient enough to never give up, resilient enough for your family, resilient enough for your friends, resilient enough to overcome to where you might have an opportunity to have your story told or tell your own story in a book. And so there are so many stories that I chose. It was so many that I had to choose from. Moments of when I blew out my shoulder my rookie year and had a collision down in Houston with the Texans, running down on kickoff when the old school kickoff was still around. And the gentleman that we crashed into, I crashed into, his name was Cedric Killings, of all names. Last name was Killings. Big 6'4", 280-pound defensive tackle for the Texans. But I lost my season, but he lost his career because he broke his neck on that play. And then watching him fight through it and regain movement in his extremities over the course of that year, and then start a brand new career giving back with his wife and making a difference, and eventually fighting a battle against pancreatic cancer and passing away 2 years ago. These are those moments that remind me that you can get back up. And that's what that chapter is titled, and that's what that chapter is about. But there's so many times where the people and the moments that happen in your life, whether it happened directly to you or you were a part of it, that are powerful. And when you share them in a way that's digestible and people can read it and understand it and be entertained by it, it can make a massive difference. And so that's why I wrote the book, to be able to get the message out. So I encourage everyone listening or seeing this, do me a favor, go out and get you a copy of it or two. We are really trying to make this a bestseller, not so much so that my name grows in the lights, but the more people that can get those messages in the book, the more people that can be blessed and be able to be encouraged to keep fighting and fighting through their respective journeys that they're on.
Absolutely incredible to get to spend a half an hour with you, Roy. It was absolutely my pleasure. I'm very grateful to you for all the fighting that you've done to get to where you are, and to now have this beautiful encapsulation of how others can do so. If you can make it to that top of that mountain, and to be, like you said, one of 160 out of 8 billion, to be able to do it from your upbringing, there's really nothing that is impossible, but you're going to have to fight. You're going to have to work, and you're going to have to get there. And finding motivation in books like yours is the way that other young men and women are going to find to fight through whatever they're going through in their lives. So everybody, once again, you can find that at fightthroughit.com. I cannot wait to read my copy and to see versions of myself inside of the pages. What I think is really what we're seeking to do anytime that we consume any form of content. So Roy, just really appreciative for you coming on, sharing a bit of your story, and thank you for writing this book. I think it's going to do incredible things to change our culture and change our world.
Oh, thanks so much, Bubba. Happy to be on here. Your platform is awesome. And I'm, again, we talked about this before we got on, but I'm glad that you fought through it and you are who you are and where you are. Keep being one of the best, brother.
Thank you. And thank you for being part of the scene.
Amen. Appreciate you.